Elia Sassi is going to introduce our very special guest this evening, Setsuko Thurlow.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. It is truly a great honor and a great privilege to be here with all of you today to mark Hiroshima and Nagasaki Day, to see the exhibit, and also to introduce our next extraordinary speaker. It's an immense personal honor and a profound privilege for me to introduce a remarkable individual from Willowdale who has dedicated her life to the pursuit of peace and the abolition of nuclear weapons. All of us who have had the privilege of knowing her are continuously inspired by her unwavering commitment, her profound wisdom, and her extraordinary energy and advocacy. Ms. Setsuko Thurlow, a survivor of the Hiroshima atomic bomb, has transformed her harrowing experience into a powerful force for change. Her relentless advocacy and compelling testimony have been instrumental in raising global awareness about the catastrophic consequences and perils of nuclear weapons. She is what we commonly call, in proverbial language, as one of our better angels. Her voice has resonated in the halls of the United Nations, within the corridors of many governments, and among the hearts and minds of people worldwide. In recognition of her tireless efforts, Ms. Thurlow was a co-recipient of the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize, awarded to the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. Her work with ICANN exemplifies the power of collective action and the profound impact that dedicated individuals can have on the course of history. Ms. Thurlow's story is not only a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but also a beacon of hope and inspiration. So my gratitude to Rosemary and each of you here today for making today's event possible. As we gather here today and honor Ms. Thurlow, we should remind ourselves to heed her call for action for global peace. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the extraordinary Setsuko Thurlow.
An honor to have my MP to introduce me in such a wonderful way. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Today, we are here together to commemorate the 79th anniversary of the U.S. bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I am remembering 9 members of my family, 351 schoolmates and teachers, 70,000 citizens who perished that day, and the additional 70,000 who died within the following 6 months. And those 100,000 more who died from the delayed effects of radiation from the bomb. Your presence here today is honoring the lost lives of all those who perished in Hiroshima. It pains me to reduce individual lives to a number. It seems to be trivializing their precious lives and negating their human dignity. Yet, I want you to feel above and around us a great cloud of 250,000 souls. Each person had a name. Each person was loved by someone. Let us ensure that their deaths were not in vain. We also remember and honor today all those who were violated and victimized in the name of the progress and security by the uranium mining and the more than 2,000 nuclear tests in the long-forgotten places around the world, like Mururoa, Eka, Semipalatinsk, Maralinga, and Bikini of the Marshall Islands, and many more. People whose lands and seas were irradiated, whose bodies were experimented upon, whose cultures were forever disrupted. Canada, too, has a hidden history that connects us with Hiroshima and Nagasaki through the uranium ore mined at Great Bear Lake of the Northwest Territories that was refined in Port Hope, Ontario, and sold to American Manhattan Project, which produced nuclear weapons, which were dropped upon us in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You can see this hidden history in the Canada and Atom Bomb exhibition held inside City Hall until Thursday. I am grateful that almost 50 years, beginning with the occasion of the 30th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a group of concerned citizens of Toronto, with the support of mayors of Toronto, have continued this event here at the Peace Garden. Peace Garden is over there. This gathering has enabled us to come together to support and educate each other about the threatening nuclear crisis we face and become committed citizens working for change. Toronto has been a member of the international organization named Mayors for Peace, founded in 1982 by the mayors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Founding Mayor Araki of Hiroshima has twice visited Toronto and has met with Toronto Chairman Paul Godfrey. Mayor Araki has also hosted Toronto councillors Kay Gardner and Dan Heap. Mayors for Peace has grown to have a membership of over 8,400 cities around the world, including 166 Canadian cities. It is actively involved in education and advocacy for nuclear disarmament. Mayors for Peace believes that the nuclear disarmament is an issue too important to leave to the federal government. And as the level of the government closest to people, the municipal government has an important role to play. A major accomplishment of our city council is the creation of the Peace Garden in cooperation with the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which was supported and dedicated by Pope John Paul II, Queen Elizabeth, and Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. Recent accomplishments include City Council reaffirming Toronto as a nuclear weapon-free zone, and City Council calling on federal government to sign and ratify the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. When I was 13 years old schoolgirl, I witnessed my beloved hometown of Hiroshima vanished in a flash of blinding light, flattened by the most powerful shock wave, incinerated by the heat of 4,000 degrees Celsius, and contaminated by the radiation of a single atomic bomb. A bright summer morning turned to dark twilight, with smoke and dust rising in the mushroom cloud. The dead everywhere, the injured everywhere, begging desperately for water, receiving no medical care at all. Hospitals vaporized or destroyed, and most doctors and nurses killed. I saw a procession of ghostly figures shuffling slowly. Beings who used to be human, hideously burned, blackened, and swollen, skin and flesh hanging from their bones. Many were blinded. Some carried their own eyeballs in their hands. Miraculously, I was rescued from collapsed building, where my classmates were burnt to death alive. When I emerged, it was into the spreading fire and the foul stench of burned flesh. Of a population of 360,000, largely non-combatant women, children, and elderly, 70,000 died that day. And still, 79 years later, the delayed effects of the radiation from the bomb are claiming new victims. Today, there are about 12,500 nuclear weapons in the world, in the hands of 9 nations, with 90% possessed by the United States and Russia. Most of those weapons are many times more powerful than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. Studies have shown that a tiny fraction of these arsenals, 1% or less, used in war, could trigger major climate change for years, with soot from the firestone blocking sunlight and causing worldwide famine. Nor have nuclear weapons kept the peace. Rather, they have only emboldened countries like the United States and Russia to repeatedly attack and coerce others. In the dark night of nuclear terror, there is a bright new light for peace. The United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons TPNW, adopted in July 2017 by 122 nations, 2/3 of United Nations. This in spite of the fierce opposition by the nuclear weapon states. The treaty comprehensively banned nuclear weapons and all nuclear weapon-related activities. It stigmatizes the bomb as the abomination, illegal and immoral in equal measure. It opens clear pathway to global zero, and it seeks to provide assistance for the victims of nuclear violence and environmental remediation for regions scarred by over 2,000 nuclear tests, mostly on indigenous land. This treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons was the culmination of a decade-long collaboration among non-nuclear weapon states such as Austria, Ireland, and Mexico, international organizations such as the Red Cross, and the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, which is made up of 652 non-governmental organizations in 101 nations. In 2017, ICAN was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and at the awards ceremony in Oslo, I asked everyone to feel the presence of all those victims of the use and testing of atomic bombs and celebrate together the achievement of the very first milestone toward the total elimination of nuclear weapons. To this point, Canada has refused to sign and ratify the TPNW. As a member of NATO, Canada claims the right to base its defense on the threatened use, including first use, of nuclear weapons. This country participates in NATO's nuclear planning group and regularly participates in nuclear war games, exercises, and drills. Yet, in 2021, polling shows that 74% of Canadians were in favor of Canada signing and ratifying the TPNW. The people want a ban, not a bomb. But more people need to speak out louder, work harder for the peace, compassion, and cooperation they crave. 4 years ago, on the 75th anniversary of 2 atomic bombings, I communicated with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, requesting that the federal government acknowledge its participation in the creation of atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. To issue a statement of regret for the suffering inflicted on the 2 cities, and for Canada to ratify the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. I never received an acknowledgement, even though my own Member of Parliament, Mr. Esashi, delivered my appeal to Prime Minister's office. We remember the courage, independence, and commitment to peace shown by past Prime Ministers such as Lester Pearson, who initiated Canada's role as a peacekeeper during the Suez Crisis in the 1950s. Pierre Trudeau, who during a speech at the United Nations called for the suffocation of nuclear arms race. Brian Mulroney, who kept Canada out of Ronald Reagan's Star Wars missile defense venture. And John Chrétien, who kept Canada out of the Iraq War. Further, we know that Prime Minister Chrétien and John Turner, with foreign ministers Lloyd Axworthy, Bill Graham, John Manley, have signed an open letter advocating for the TPNW. The silence from Ottawa about a nuclear weapon threat over 9 years is totally unacceptable. We are facing an ever-increasing threat of the use of nuclear weapons in the world today. Our political leaders have the moral, political responsibility to speak to us directly on a regular basis about what the government is prepared to do to ease this nuclear threat. Nothing but silence is totally unacceptable.
No, porque